We're joined by Ryan Mauro. He's a security analyst at the Clarion Project. Ryan, great to see you as always. Before we start talking more specifically about Hezbollah, let's give the people some background here, because citizens of Lebanon, they're out in the streets for days now to protest against corruption and, also the economic solutions that the government has provided to the economic crisis. For them, these reforms are really not enough, and they demand a change. They chant that they want a regime change. But is it deeper than that? Is what they're really asking for, a total change of the entire Lebanese political system?
Yes, definitely. And the political landscape, the foundations for those political parties to operate. This is really a revolution against the status quo, and it extends beyond Lebanon. We're seeing this pattern. It's almost a new phase of the Arab Spring, although it does include Iran itself. And this term of corruption that's thrown around is kind of like a catch-all term that's used to basically call out all of the political parties, but especially those influenced by the Iranian regime and Hezbollah. So while the chants may be focusing on attacks on WhatsApp or a certain economic issue, the problem in the protesters' mind is that stems from the ideology of Islamic extremism and the parties like Hezbollah that enforce it. And so this is a great opportunity for the forces of freedom in the region and the United States and everyone that supports peace.
But when you're talking about a revolution against the existing political system, can Lebanon, in your view, really exist without the sectarian politics of the country? What's the alternative? I mean, a civil war? They've been there.
Sure. Well, I don't think that there is an appetite for civil war or even any type of war at all. I think most protesters in the region understand that non-violent protests are actually more likely to be successful than violent ones. So I don't think there's an appetite for that. And Lebanon has existed as a multi-ethnic, albeit a bit dysfunctional country. So the Lebanese people do have a reason to believe that they can survive as the state of Lebanon through this and simply have new leadership, new political parties, have Shiite leaders who oppose Iran, which is really the strategic opportunity that we have here.
You have it in Iraq, by the way, where we also have seen protests. You have Shiite leaders which are not really in favor of Iranian influence in the country.
Right, and even in countries like Bahrain and in the eastern province of Saudi Arabia, where the Shia are oppressed, the Iranian efforts to influence those oppressed populations and to say, hey, we are your protector and we're going to help lead you to a better future have largely failed. And so what you are seeing is really the Iranian Islamic Revolution gasping for air right now, because what we have seen in recent years is that it's very unpopular inside Iran, but the problem that we face is that outside of Iran, there were still a lot of proxies pushing the agenda of the Iranian Islamic Revolution. That has now changed. So you have lots of people, Shiites, again, in Iraq, in Lebanon, and elsewhere, protesting against Iran and all of its proxies, regardless of whether a government is overthrown or not. That is a decisive ideological defeat for the Iranian regime and all those who ally with it for the sake of political expediency or corruption.
Some numbers here, Ryan. Lebanon has a national debt of about $85 billion. The unemployment rate among young adults is at 36% reportedly. And the population there keeps growing as the economic growth remains stagnant. How did it happen, though? How did Lebanon get there? And to what extent does Hezbollah play a role?
The bottom line here is that Islamist theocrats don't govern well. And so they make all of these promises. They promise everybody everything, and they corrupt everyone that they possibly can. And then when they get in power, they inevitably cannot deliver upon their promises because they're not only not good at governing, but they promise too much and they lie their way into power. And so eventually, all of their lies become exposed. And so that is what you have seen happen here. And of course, as a result of that, you have just more generic failures on the part of the government and people wanting to have more stability for the sake of their families and their children in the future. and they're looking inward. No longer can these forces pick a fight with a country like Israel or the United States or anywhere else and say they are causing the problems for you. The people in the Middle East understand it's their leaders who need to be held accountable. It's an incredible moment.
Good point. Ryan Mauro, thank you for joining us. Question is, how many people will actually point at Hezbollah?